Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about pets and spouses and children. I'm married. I have two little boys, 5 years old and 8 years old, and we have some pets. For a little background, I grew up on a farm where we had barn cats, and growing up, we always had a dog. We had a couple different dogs in my lifetime, but we always had one around. And we loved having a dog. It was everything it's supposed to be. The dog had lots of room to run. The farm was very wide open. We lived out in the country, of course, where there was a lot of room, not a lot of traffic. The dog was pretty much free to roam during the day, though they usually stayed around the yard, except when they were following us. Not really bike rides or walks so much as when my dad and brother would be out doing farm work. The dog always wanted to hang around where the people were. Especially our earlier dog. She followed him. She'd chase the tractor up and down the fields all day. It was always nice. It was just, I don't know, made you feel good to know that your pet wanted to be near you all the time. The next dog, little different personality. He laid on the porch a lot more and was always there to greet the mail lady who always gave him treats, and he was just a sweetheart. But they also served as good guard dogs and just good friends and companions when you were working. All the things a good dog should be, I think. The barn cats, exactly what it sounds like. We had multiple barns. The cats lived outdoors. They caught mice, hopefully. They hunted. We would occasionally see them back in our woods when we were hunting for other animals, and you'd see a cat go by and you think, oh, that's cool. They're out actually hunting. They're doing some good. We fed them, of course. You know, they got fed daily. And as I was growing up, I always loved when one of the female cats would be pregnant. Keep a close eye on them. When they suddenly didn't appear to be pregnant anymore, you said, oh, I got to go figure out where the kittens are. And we had a couple of cats that were excellent mothers and raised many, many kittens that we had around. You know, nature takes its course and gets rid of a few, and sometimes gave a couple away when they were old enough, but we always had cats around, and I absolutely love them. This all leads to the conversation I really want to talk about today, which is indoor pets. None of our pets were indoor pets. The dogs lived outdoor year-round. We had a doghouse. You'd pile bales of straw around them in the winter to shelter them from the wind and the cold. On really bitter nights, we would put the dog inside the shop. So they were completely inside an insulated building. There wasn't necessarily heat running, but there was often an old recliner or something and some blankets they could curl up in to stay warm. You may have opinions on pets being outdoors and things, but I believe dogs were raised in nature. They come from the outdoors. They're built for it. The breeds we had, at least. Obviously, these days there are breeds that would never make it overnight outdoors, and that's a different story. But my parents had a very firm rule that the pets don't live in the house. I didn't like that as a kid, especially with the cats. I wanted an indoor cat. I wanted to have a cat in the house. They said you can bring one in, you can play with it, and when you're done, the cat goes out. They didn't want to deal with cat urine and poop. Definitely understandable. They didn't want to deal with pet hair on all the furniture or the floor or any of the things that go with it. Understandable, even if I didn't agree at the time. But as an adult, I did have a cat in the house for a while, a place that I lived, and I experienced all the problems that come with that, and eventually reverted back to not having indoor pets. And now I feel very strongly about that. And fast forward to getting married and having kids. When I was dating my wife, she had a pet rabbit, and he lived in her apartment. He had a fenced-in area where he spent most of his time, but he could, she let him out and hop around a little while, and he was cute and he was kind of fun to hold. And I did have rabbits for a while growing up. So I had experienced rabbits before. That wasn't totally new to me. Anyway, she eventually had to give that rabbit away to somebody when we got married and moved into a different apartment that no longer allowed pets. So that was the end of pets for a while. Now with kids, they're old enough that we'd love to have a dog, but now we live in town. We don't have a fenced-in yard, and I still feel very strongly about not having a dog in the house. Not a full-time indoor pet. My wife has allergies, so cats are not even an option, which I'm okay with. Cats are great, but I don't need one. I had that experience growing up, and I'm okay not having one. I do wish for my boys to have the experience of having a dog. There's something about it, a boy and a dog, that is a special experience growing up. I'm sure the same is true for girls with their pets. But as a guy, I had that experience, and I would love for my kids to have it too. The problem is, I do not want it in the house. And we don't have a property that is really appropriate for the dog to be outside. I know there's invisible fence, and you can buy fence and put it up, and it's a lot of work, and it's a fair amount of money. I'm not opposed to some work, and I'm not opposed to some money. But money's been hard to come by lately, and that is always a factor in making decisions. So we have had fish, had a fish tank with multiple fish and things, and that was fun for a while. My older boy really enjoyed that, but then that came to an end. That was my wife's decision. And then my younger boy had some nursing care that came to the house and took care of him. And the nurse presented an idea to my wife without asking me or telling me. I came home one day and suddenly we had a pet chinchilla. No asking, no talking about it, just, hey, we took this chinchilla, we're babysitting it for a while to see how it goes. That was the story I was given. It went fine. If you've never experienced a chinchilla, they are, I guess it depends. They're very, very, very soft. They're quiet. They're often friendly. They drink very little, but they do poop a lot. But they're little dry poop pellets, bigger than a mouse, but same kind of an idea, that they just leave little pellets everywhere. They're kind of like a rabbit. And they look like, I don't know, somewhere between a big squirrel head on a bunny body with kind of a bushy squirrel tail. I don't know. I think ours is cute, actually. I do like him. But the problem was, why do we have this pet in the cage that lives nearly its entire life in the cage? And then even my older boy he's not mature enough to handle the chinchilla safely. He tried a lot early on, and the chinchilla very clearly expressed that it did not feel safe with him. I mentioned they're usually quiet. It will chitter at him and make noises if he tries to reach in the cage to grab it, enough to intimidate him a little. And I don't know. He's just not a calm, slow-moving kid yet, and he doesn't understand. So my younger boy thinks the chinchilla's great, but isn't really inclined to pet him and hold him unless we bring him over. So anyway, time passes. My wife says, well, the chinchilla's not really working out great for the boys. I'd like to get them a pair of guinea pigs. This time, at least, she talked to me about it. But it was my opinion that our boys were not ready to take on those responsibilities, and I said, no, not now. No. She begged, she pleaded. I explained my reasons and said, no, we don't need more pets right now. The boys aren't ready for it. We went to the pet store and saw a couple guinea pigs. Just felt like it was just to taunt the boys and show them, make them want it more. I still said, no, I was not okay with this. And the next day I got home from work and she had gone and bought the guinea pigs anyway. So now we have a chinchilla and 2 guinea pigs. And one of the guinea pigs lasted a few months and died. The other one has actually lasted a long time, and he's doing well. Story is they're very social animals and that they can die of loneliness, and so it's considered almost torture to have one live by itself, but we have. Whatever that means. We're not doing it on purpose. We just... kind of where the argument settled. I said no, she said yes. One died, so she's not replacing it. More time passes. I don't remember where this started, but then my wife decides she wants rabbits. Somebody from my kid's school raises bunnies, and my wife is suddenly convinced we need to have a couple of bunnies. Again, I said, no, you already did this before. You got pets when I wasn't cool with it. And you did it with a chinchilla, which, the babysitting for a while to see how it works out. Obviously, we still have it. A year or two has passed now. We still have it. Guinea pigs has been over a year. Still have the one. We talk about the rabbits multiple times. I keep explaining we already have a couple of pets. The boys aren't doing a good job taking care of them. My wife and I have to do it all the time. The boys just aren't ready to keep taking on more pets. Next thing you know, I come home and my wife has brought home a couple of bunnies. And yes, they're cute, they're adorable, they're sweet, they're super soft, they're great as far as bunnies go. I said, I was just at a loss. I'm not a dictator in our home. I don't mean to be. I don't want to be. I'd like my wife and I to be a team, but when we disagree, who breaks the tie? Where does the final decision lie when the two of us disagree? So now we have 1 chinchilla, 1 guinea pig, and 2 bunnies. She said she would take care of them. They're her pets. They're not the boys' pets. They don't have to be responsible for them. I don't have to be responsible for them. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Now, she wants baby bunnies. She's been wanting to breed what we got, which she was told was 2 females. And that has not been successful. So her sister, who also got a couple bunnies, does have some babies. Now my wife wants to take at least one of those. We're acquiring more and more animals. We're having to feed more and more animals. And I'm not cool with it. I guess the big thing that I've skipped in all this was that the chinchilla lives in the house. Originally in the boys' bedroom. Then was briefly out in a family room. And then got moved to the basement. Not too big a deal because the chinchilla doesn't smell very much. His cage doesn't smell very much. It's not too bad. A little upkeep needs to be done to keep it clean, but it's not too bad. The guinea pigs were in the basement for a while. And then with this remodeling project we did last fall, over the winter, the bunnies, which had been living outside, because they're a little more all-weather animal. The chinchilla comes from a warmer environment, and there's a limit to what he can handle. He stayed in the house, stayed in the basement. The bunnies and the guinea pig got moved out to the garage for the winter, they're in their cages, and we put some like reptile heat lamps around the cage to provide some heat. They're sheltered. It's an insulated room, so it's a lot less bitter and harsh out there than it is outdoors, at least. They survived the winter. They've done well. Now it's probably getting time for them to move back outside as springtime comes soon. And she wants baby bunnies too. So we just keep getting more. We're going to be up to 4, 5, 6 animals pretty soon. We just keep getting more, and we keep feeding more. Money's already a problem. So when you love pets and you want your kids to have that experience, but you and your spouse don't see eye to eye on what pets and where they should be, what do you do? What's an ideal pet for a child in the 5 to 10-year-old range that they can get some practice with responsibility, doing chores, cleaning out cages? An animal that's playful, hopefully easy enough to hold, safe, doesn't bite too much, doesn't eat a ton, doesn't smell too bad. I don't know. But if you have any thoughts on the animals or how to discuss this with my wife and try to come to an understanding together, an agreement that we can both accept, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.